All right, so the first question is, well, can you give a brief introduction of who you are and your background as an artist?
Yes, I'm Afarin Rahmanifar, and I've been painting for more than 30 years now. And I grew up in Tehran, Iran, and later lived in United States after the revolution, aftermath of revolution in 1979. I have a unique experience of living in both pre-revolution and as well as post-revolution in Iran, and which was quite kind of amazing experience of experimenting and kind of living in two major incident that happened in Iran. And I received my, actually I am associate professor of painting and drawing at Eastern Connecticut State University. And I received my bachelor degree from Al-Azhar University in Tehran and MFA from University of Connecticut. And you know, that's about my background pretty much.
Awesome. Can you speak a little bit more about your educational journey? What it's been like from Iran to the US and how that has fed into your artistic approach?
Yes, sure. It's been quite a journey. I always define myself as a product of my past and present in my work, and my work always enabled me to understand what is going on around me, and that's how I was able to connect myself to a new situation, to new experience, to having a new life, and basically with the outside world. And this experience was quite amazing, and my work has been going through a lot of transitions since I moved to US, and my background, you know, training was mainly related to a miniature painting, and which it was a great experience. And when I came to US, I sort of moved away from that experience. I wanted to experiment more variety of style in my work, and I started getting really interested in abstract expressionism, and I was working with that kind of approach for a while. And short after, I should say that I started experimenting with mixed media in my painting, and my paintings are mainly on wood, which is I really prefer working on the hard surfaces, especially when I'm working on with mixed media. And the mixed media project is a project. It's been always and always quite kind of a journey for me, and using different materials. And I had that opportunity to really work with that until up to this point, you know, of my life. That, as I mentioned before, my work went through a lot of transitions throughout the years of working with mixed media painting.
Awesome. That was actually one of my questions, which is great that you answered it. Essentially, like, what concepts are you interested in exploring through your art?
Okay. My work always been about women, always. And I dedicate that to all women in the world. That's my goal always. And the imaginary images of contemporary representational, or sometimes, you know, abstracted women imagery in my work have several meanings depending on your qualitative and personal lived experiences. As part of my work, again, I'm concerned with absence of women's voice. I depict women as protagonist characters in both Eastern and Western culture, which I'm going to explain that, later on in more details. But I have to mention that I always feel my presence in my work. So I'm not trying to, my work is not a generalization. It's I am always involved in my work, and I feel my presence every second of during my production of my work. And I am feeling also that I'm an instrument to unravel stories of her past and existing memories of life, existing memories of her. So basically, that's what I intend to do.
Hmm. Do you consider yourself a diasporic artist? And how is this experience reflected in your work?
Um, well, I have to tell you that I have to give you a little background about that. In the 20th century, artists have critically addressed, personal and historical issues of their work, and consequently generated a range of possibilities for acclaimed artists um, to create great work during this time. And this new exercise broadly situated modern contemporary artwork by people of diaspora, of course. And I mostly like to envision myself among these symbolic women I portray and tend to recite and tell their stories. Um, in a way, they are auto portrait of myself because their story is my story and my story is their stories. And if you take a look at my paintings, or mixed media paintings, the blue creatures, all my work, the blue creatures or characters are they exist, all part of my work. These blue creature characters, they represent um, myself as a storyteller. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's the energy that I try to produce in my work.
Yeah. So kind of like you were saying how it's always a little bit personal, but not like general, but it's still relating to, I guess, the experience of womanhood, but with that,
Womanhood.
personal take on it.
Mhm.
Um cool. So can you speak on your creative approach and creative process behind your pieces and what goes into creating them?
Um, yes, of course. I wanted to give you a little information before I get to that part about the concept of my work a little. I want to elaborate a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, when you look at my work, the tension, chromatic energy of the color, fragmented body parts, collage, poetic script in my work reflects challenges I faced while adjusting identity in my life. But my recent work showcases the female characters from Ferdowsi. Ferdowsi 10th is a 10th century epic poem, Shahnameh, which Shahnameh is a Persian Book of Kings. It's a masterpiece in the Persian world and diaspora. And so my experimental approach has always been fundamental to my conceptual ideas and to to get my concept across some of the visual imagery, visual um, stories that I'm put together. So large scale mixed media painting, installation, and animation film production that I've done enabled me, and sculpture also enables me to consider multiple options, you know, to explore innovative techniques, innovative ideas, innovative way of telling the same story, telling the story of womanhood. So, so to answer your question, I wanted to say that I investigate, you know, by looking at women's throughout the history who have struggled to find balance um, between power and grace. That was my another intention of my work. I investigate, like this investigation, it's always letting me to immerse myself in Ferdowsi epic stories all of a sudden, which is the woman character of this in the poem became the centerpiece of my work. And this centerpiece of these characters, it's been kind of, you know, established by a multi-platform painting, installation, and sculpture and animation, film production. So I sort of brought all these characters into as a centerpiece of the characters of um, uh, Women of Shahnameh. I call it. That's the series of my work. Women of Shahnameh is basically reciting the story of these women and bringing them into the centerpiece of the story. And I intend to revive and resuscitate, and you know, the historical view of these women of Shahnameh in my work. And Shahnameh and women of Shahnameh, I believe they chose me to recite and retell their stories. I didn't choose them. I do, however, feel like, and I'm obligated. I felt like that I am obligated to weave this personal stories among the politics and story of uh, the narrative of Shahnameh. So it became a little more complicated as I started at the beginning, and I started feeling myself totally involved with these characters and their stories. That their stories, it's been recited by my vision, by my way of centering or making these characters centerpiece of this story.
Going off of that, can you speak on the pieces that are actually going to be featured in the exhibition, and kind of talking about, I guess, like your creative process behind creating those specific pieces in the series, and why you chose them to be in the exhibition?
Well, I think I take great interest, you know, in investigating women's historic roles involving work of poetry to amplify. This is the important part for me, to amplify contemporary women's voice, uh, voice and power, and identity. So it's a again, it's an obligation to create that kind of path in my work. And of course, you know, this uh, the story and the narrative of Shahnameh has been always one of the important way of illuminating and, you know, making these brave and loyal and very sensuous women, bringing them into a center of the piece. And I also have to, I don't know, I want to talk about also the the um, the way that I, this topic and the title of the exhibition has been selected. I am co-curating with Yulia, and with this exhibition, and it's been a pleasure working with her. It's been a pleasure to know some of the artists that I didn't know, but I had the opportunity to have this opportunity to get to know these wonderful artists, and some of the artists, of course, I've known them for many, many years, and they have been part of my selection always, as I co-curated exhibitions along the way during the past 20 years, I should say. And so the title of the show, I acknowledge Simin Behbahani, and she's the poet, and as she's a very influential and integral character, or activist, I should say, in current Iranian women movement. And I have to mention that she contributed and developed a new way of Persian poetry, adding more theatrical, subject to her work. And she's been a role model for many, many artists and writers, artists. And she was able to maintain a love of her culture and people in her work. So the title that we chose for this exhibition focuses on the challenge facing women's anxiety in the wake of changes that happened in Islamic revolution for women, and women's rights. So, and I think I wanted to mention that and kind of emphasize on that poem that she's really stood out, and she in her life, and I want to share that with everyone.
And so that poem, how does that fit into the multiple roles that you're asked to take on as an artist?
Not necessarily, but my in the background of my thoughts, and when I work, I always have that kind of, I always appreciated and kind of thought that the influence is always there for me. Not only her, but there are a lot of like Furu Farrokhzad, and a lot of poets that they sort of stood out for me, and I really I am influenced by most of them. A lot of poets as well.
And what do you hope that viewers take away from your work after viewing it and after experiencing it? What ultimately do you hope that they walk away with?
I think I support the classic, narrative of the Shahnameh, which is highlighting the exploit of and it highlights and exploits male characters who dominate the work. That's the total general implication that this Shahnameh offers. So this narrative of Shahnameh focuses mainly male characters. So I reposition and illuminate the compassionate, brave, loyal, and sensuous women into the center of the epic. And I highlight the compassionate women, that they have a really major role they had. And I think one of the things that I have to mention that the audience, I like to talk about the audience that may be interested in my work is not certain group of gender or type of person. Rather, rather women of Shahnameh series should become familiar to all people to help and reconstruct the power of women whose stories have been largely ignored. And you know, that's what I'm hoping for my work to give that message to the viewer.
Would you say that you hope to, I guess, like create a sense of empowerment, not even just amongst women, but especially amongst women, but all viewers, and kind of I guess like inspire people to look more into the history of your pieces and find empowerment in that way?
I think you're explaining it well, and I think the women's voice, there's amplifying the contemporary women's voice and power is really important for me. And I started to, as I mentioned before, even from grad school, you know, right from the beginning, my work has been all about women. And this story started from my work, started from you know, Barbie series that my daughter, she was involved with, and that's the first thing she asked for. And the whole Barbie series is one of the series that I've done very beginning, and another series, Shahrazad Encounter to Never Never Land. It's another series of mixed media painting again. Again, it's about Shahrazad reciting stories in the, you know, of how she survived with the power and, you know, of womanhood. And so everything that I've been working on, basically, it has somehow focuses in empowerment of womanhood.
Awesome. And so the last question, as an Iranian woman artist working in the US, what additional thoughts would you like to share in reflection to this experience?
Well, you know, as I mentioned before, you know, I really, my work has been dedicated to all women. And that includes Iranian women. That includes me and you. That includes all the 10 other artists who are participating in this great exhibition. And I mean, the way that I don't have any specific kind of recipe to put out there and say, this is what I did. But I think throughout the years of working, producing work, exhibiting, all these years, I think the work is allowing me or allowing women to be acknowledged. And that's the most important part of my presence as an artist, and putting my voice, personal voice, and mixing that with the historical historical narratives of women, and kind of combining that and feeling the presence of, you know, my presence in my work. It's been always a great and kind of fascinating moments for me that I don't even want to listen to anything. Like, I know that artists, they play music as they work, but I cannot even listen to music when I work. I have a conversation, I have a dialogue with my work constantly. So it's a beautiful moment that I have, not only for me as a woman, but this dialogue, I put it out there for every woman, including Iranian, including any women living in the world.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. It was really great to hear more about your art and learn more about your process behind it and your thoughts behind it. I'm really excited for the exhibition and to see all of the artists. Do you have any last words before I stop recording?
Yeah, I want to talk about the, Jackie, I want to talk about the last 3 pieces that is going to be part of this exhibition. And these 3 pieces, I've been specifically working on it for this exhibition. And there are kind of a departure, but not conceptually, but in terms of the approach and of my work and mixed media approach to my work. And I'm so grateful to be able to exhibit that in this exhibition and share that with my students, and which I'm teaching a mixed media painting class in the fall. So I'm looking forward to share that with my students also as well.
Oh, that's exciting.
Well, thank you so much for your time and listening to my story. And it's a pleasure meeting you. And I'm sure that I'll meet you soon.
Of course. Thank you.